each category to ask our candidates this evening. So, did I miss anything? We'll ask a question, they'll have 1 minute to give you their answer as complete as they can. Jim has been asking if he can buy other people's minutes, and we told him no, the timer goes off, he's done. So, yeah, I think with that, we'll get started, and thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Hello and good evening, and thank you for being here as well. Question number 1, and we're starting out with an easy one. If you would introduce yourself and tell us why you decided to run for the school board.
Good evening, my name is Wade Manning. Been a community and a school supporter since 2000, resident since 2002. 4 years ago, I got on the Booster Club, and that spurred the moment of me asking questions on just how things really work. And when I first came to community, I was a business owner, and walking through the halls of the high school, middle school, and elementary, there was all that positiveness, and really enjoyed seeing the kids' faces. And I know times have changed. Oh, and back then, I could walk in about any door. Now, with security reasons, we can't do that. But just want to be a part of this positive school district moving forward and keep that ball moving and lead by a positive example.
Hi, I'm Brenda Clifton. I've raised 3 children in the Winterset School District. My son Rob graduated in 2014, and my daughter Allison in 2016, and my youngest Carly is a senior in high school this year. I've been on the school board for 9 years, so I'm the incumbent, and I was appointed for my first in the midterm when another school board member resigned early, and then I ran for 2 subsequent terms. And the reason that I want to run for the school board is that I feel like preparing our students for their future is something that's very important for their lives, but it's also important for our community and for the world. And so even though my focus hasn't changed in having opportunities for all students, but I feel like the finance portion of being on the school board is very different from other kinds of finance. So I'm wanting to run for school board again to train the other and mentor the other school board members in oversight of school finance and then turn the regime over.
Good evening. My name is James Gagan. I'm a senior medical physicist at the Stoddard Cancer Center. I'm a transplant to Winterset. My wife was born and raised here. So 2 years after we got married, we had the opportunity to move here for work. 6 years after we were married. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so it's a little bit of a different environment than Winterset. I feel that offers me a unique perspective. I have a little different point of view, a different place of where I'm coming from. I'm running for school board. I want to see an environment where all of our kids can succeed. Not just ones going to college, not just ones that want to be in a VOTEC program, but one where every child has the opportunity to make the most that they can, and the most of their abilities. I'd also see an environment where our administrators, our teachers, can use their professional judgment. I think too often in this society we get locked down into policies, procedures. If A happens, we do B, and we've taken the judgment out of our teachers' hands. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Hensley. My wife and I moved out to Winterset area going on about 12 years, 13 years now. While out here, I've been very involved with the basketball program, coaching my oldest son's team. So been around some of the kids and just really enjoy that. But I guess my main reason for running for school board is to make sure that I work for the city of West Des Moines. I manage a group of just shy of 70 people. And I found that the best ideas are generated by the people that are doing the work. And in the school district, that translates to the teachers. And I think that the teachers need to be able to bring their thoughts and their views forward and be supported by the administration. So that's one of the things that I think that I can bring to the table is allowing those teachers to get their information to the board and be supported.
Hello, I am Julie Knobloch. I am kind of a transplant, James. I graduated from I-35 in 2000. My husband Ryan and I have two boys. One is a sophomore, Drake is in high school, and then Bo is a freshman in high school. So I had the question of, well, your kids are almost gone, why would you want to run? Well, I have two nieces and a nephew that are getting ready to also go through the district. And at the end of the day, we're part of a community and we're raising kids to become active citizens in this community, in another community. So that's really important to me. The other thing is to keep it really simple is, I will never regret doing the little things. And running for the board is not a little thing, but it's the little things that add up to a really big thing. So I will never regret that. And then also, one person can make a difference. Now, it takes 5 people on a board. You know, most of the time, at least 3 people have to vote, right? But it takes 5 people, but doing the little things and being that one person can make a big difference in changing views and asking the right questions. That was a different one. Thanks.
My name is Kirk Macumber. I am, for whatever it means, not a transplant. My grandparents went here, my parents went here, I went here, children went here. I've got a niece and nephew in the school district right now. The reason that I'm running is that I think I bring a lot of experience and that can be beneficial to the board in the future. There's going to be a lot of big decisions that are going to be made here in the near future. We've got West Des Moines moving in. We've got changes in the school district. I've spent 4 years on the city council. Very familiar with budgets and policies there. Spent another 4 years on the board of supervisors. So managing that budget, from that served on about 7 different boards from there. Mental health has always been a big interest of mine, even on the board of supervisors. I know that there's been a lot of changes and would like to continue those.
Hi, thanks for coming. My name's Jim Olson, and I'm a 1964 graduate of Winterset High School. I'm also, my family is 3-generation high school graduates from here. And I'm really vested in this community. I'm presently the mayor and have been for 14 years. And for that job, it's just time to move on. So I want to still serve the community. And I'll tell you, the reason why I'm running is because I hear a lot about that the school isn't very well perceived. And there's a lot of bad feelings out there in the community because of it. And I'd like to be able to help change those attitudes with the facts, because I really truly believe that perception is real and facts are negotiable. So if the perception is the school isn't doing so well, then I need to help use the facts and try to change that, because it's a great school.
Thank you. We'll pass that down to Brenda. Thank you very much.
Good teamwork, guys.
I think, oh, yeah, there we are. Question number 2. What do you see as one strength and one area in need of improvement in our district?
Well, I think the strength is the community support that we have. We're just thinking about all the changes that we've made and passing the school bond and everything. And there's so much community support and partnership, and we need that because so much pressure is put on public education right now, and we're asking teachers to do so many things, not just academic achievement, but nutrition and a safe environment and mental health. And so I guess that sort of segues into one of the challenges that I just feel like we need to advocate for the funding that goes with the things that we're asking the school to do. And I would just like to see more programs, not just the funding for the schools, but programs that support those root causes outside of the public school system. It doesn't all have to happen there. but I think our teachers and staff do a fantastic job for all the things that society asks a public school system to do.
I think the biggest strength of the school district are our students and our teachers. And the school district has hired some wonderful teachers. I think all of us that are parents know we have a fantastic bunch of kids. I think what I'd like to see improved is the level of trust that exists between teachers, administrators, and parents. And the way that we establish that trust is by communicating. Not just on a large scale level, not just district to parents, but from teachers to parents, from students to teachers, teachers to administrators. We need to have a back and forth. That means parents have to be involved as well. We don't have to like everybody that we deal with, but we have to trust them. And you establish that trust by getting to know each other. So I'd like to have an environment where if something happens that affects a small group of students, that information can be conveyed to the parents. If something happens on a school-wide level, you can inform everyone in the school. If it just affects a class, affect those, those parents. Thank you.
All right, some of the strengths that we have, obviously, we have a lot of people here that are very involved in the school district, concerned with how things are going in the school district. That's evident by the amount of people that are here in this crowd now. May it be a small portion of the community that's enrolled here, but I think that there is a large desire from the community for the school district to better itself. The perception that people have of the school district, which I see that as a strength. That means that there's going to be support for some changes that may need to be made in the future. Some of the weaknesses, I would agree that communication, and it may not be that the school district isn't communicating, but it may be how that communication occurs. And I think that the way that the communication occurs can be changed. I'm a perfect example. I'm not in on social media, and I think that when communication happens over social media, a big segment of the population is left out. So that may need to be rethought on how that communication happens.
I would have to agree with everybody before us. We have an amazing group of kids, and I would say an amazing group of teachers. And so that's one of the things that I think we do best is we hire and keep some of the best teachers. The other thing is there's a lot of passion, and there's a lot of passion in the room. You guys wouldn't be here if you weren't passionate about the schools and their kids. And so that in and of itself is a really big deal, is having their backs and having our teachers' backs and wanting everything to get better. So that's one of the strengths. One of the weaknesses, and you guys can't see this, but this is a strategic plan theory document. And I'll be completely honest, it really bugs me. And the reason it bugs me is because the theory of action is all if statements. So I'll read the first one to you. If staff believe all students can learn and embrace all students as our own, and if we engage in growth mindset, and it's if all the way, what about when? Because I tell you what, our teachers aren't here because they don't love our kids. So when staff, or because our staff believe these things, this is what's got to change, is the mentality of that.
I think it's going to be a combination. Both strength and weakness are the relationships that teachers and administrators have with the students. At the last school board meeting, I saw a very impassioned Zach Sweeney talking about a Husky program that they've initiated for freshmen in high school, where they teach life skills, they teach transitioning to high school from junior high, help them with everything that you need to know to succeed at the high school level. The weakness, I would like to see more of that in every building. I know the elementary school has gone through a lot of changes where they're making an effort to greet students as they come in the morning. It's develop those relationships. There was a lot of talk this summer in the board meetings about, really getting that relationship with the student, and then when they're acting out, you've got a relationship with them so that you can deal with it. Thank you.
Well, I think the strength, and a lot of them have alluded to, is sitting right out there, and all these people here willing to give up their time and their talents to do the best they can for the school district. I've been around all my life, and it's a great school district. The citizens have always come through. You need a bond issue. Maybe it didn't pass the first time. Most of the time it has, but they've always come through. We're going to have great facilities. One thing that I want to try to get improved on is the teacher morale. I just don't think it's great right now, and I don't know why it isn't, whether it's a combination of the discipline of the kids or the administration or what, but I just want to be an advocate for the teachers since I've been one, and I want to help them realize that somebody has their back and that we can help them make it even a better place than it is now.
I'll be Vanna.
Yeah, as far as a strength, begins with the teachers and the fact that in every building, and those teachers, on a daily basis, they work with our pride and joys, our students, and they challenge and encourage those kids academically, socially, and even with extracurricular activities, staying involved in your community, and to be competitive and show respect and spirit whether you're succeeding or failing. And then those teachers also work with those kids on how to work with that success and failure to make themselves become productive citizens down the road.
Thank you very much. Our third question, I'm going to ask Cameron to come up here. It's kind of a specific question. And so I'll read the question and she'll explain several of the terms. She would think the teacher would be able to do that, but I punted. So here it is. With the recent change in collective bargaining laws, what is your stance on allowing permissible subjects to remain in the master teacher contract?
So we don't want to put anybody on the spot, so we just kind of want to explain a little bit about what this is about. I'm the chief negotiator for the district, so this is language that I've been speaking for a long time. So collective bargaining rights changed, and they took away, the legislature took away a lot of items that we were able to negotiate at a table. It was mandatory that we were able to negotiate at the table. And when those laws changed, they made some items illegal, so we had to remove those from our contract. They made other items permissible, meaning that the district could decide if those items were going to be left in the contract or taken out. And at any time, they could take them out because they were not mandatory topics of bargaining. So I hope that helps a little bit. So what we'd like to know is, what is your stance on that? How do you feel about leaving permissible items in a contract that could be taken out?
And I was hoping for a multiple choice question.
Yeah. ABC.
Always choose C.
C. I'm going to come down to the line that the best decisions are made local. So from a personal standpoint, I don't like seeing the legislature dictate to that level what can and can't be in a contract negotiated between the teachers union and the school board, the school district. So from my point of view, yeah, the district and the teacher should be able to negotiate everything. If that's not currently the state law, and it doesn't appear that that is, then as a school board member, I'm going to hold the line that the school board has to obey by state law.
This is an interesting subject. I get to deal with this on a daily basis. I work for the city of West Des Moines. My employees lost their rights to bargain. So permissive language in a contract. This is a tough one for me because as a manager, I see it that if I have a good enough relationship with my employees, I don't need a contract. Because I'm going to be looking out for their best interest. It's not necessarily going to be. Now there's got to be a little bit of deciding between, the best interest of the city or the district or whatever that may be. But permissive items, I think that they should be on the table. If a teachers union or the union feels strongly enough that they need to have that and they don't feel that the relationship is there and that that is going to be good for morale and they're going to do a better job because that language is there, then I think that that's an important thing to establish that relationship.
So my first thought goes to, it's hard to answer a question that I don't know a whole lot about, right? And so I don't know what's permissible and I don't know what's been taken off. And I think it's a case-by-case basis. And I think it's talking to the teachers and what's important and talking to the unions. And until that is presented in front of me where I can look at facts, I don't know that I can give you a cut and dry answer, just with anything. I am somebody who likes to do research and I like to base my opinions and base those off of facts and not just off of what I'm hearing. So what is the law? What are the things that we need to be careful of? And what are our guidelines? So for me, it's something that I would have to research and I honestly can't give you a yes or no answer.
I would answer it this way. I am responsible for hiring employees at our engineering firm in Des Moines. And if we want the best school, which I believe everybody here wants, I mean, that's the goal of everybody in the community, I would assume, I would hope, then we need the best and brightest to want to come work here. And you're not going to do that without compensation. You're not going to do that without a package that attracts people when compared to surrounding schools. You know, you don't want them dissatisfied and looking elsewhere for permissive language that may be allowed somewhere else and not allowed here. I know Indianola went through some issues with permissive language and they almost lost a whole bunch of teachers. And I'd hate to see that happen here. So you want to be able to attract the best, you want to keep the best. I think that's part of it. Thank you.
To save a little time for me, I agree with Kurt. However, it's kind of a no-brainer for me if you're asking me that question because I'm a life member of ISCA and NEA. Okay, and I used to negotiate contracts for the teachers. Now, I'll just tell you, in the city, we ran into the same thing, only with the city, if there's a certain percentage of our law enforcement, then you gotta have to keep everything in your contract. And they can't do anything about it. We hired a new employee and we made his job description such that he went into the law enforcement area so we could keep it because the city wanted to negotiate with the union. Okay, and I think that's right too. I think Kirk's right. If you want to keep good teachers, you want to have good teacher morale, then you don't want to beat them down. And you know, there's just so much money that you can give them anyway. So, you know, that's really not an issue. You get new money from the state every year. That's the money that they use to negotiate. And I think every school district in Iowa wants their teachers to have as much as they can and still be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, permissible items in the contract for the teachers, you have to encourage that to keep them positive, keep them outlook, because they have families they have to take care of at home too. And to keep that, you know, it would change also over time with the demographic of the union and how the age, the dynamic changes. So by keeping those non-valuable, but they're valuable to somebody else, you kind of have to step back and look and put yourself in their boots sometimes and look at it from their eyes and see how those permissible items really do affect somebody and makes their days a lot more positive.
If I remember correctly, when that legislation changed, I think the only thing that came out of the contract was the things that were deemed illegal. But the thing that always bothered me about collective bargaining was if it became an us versus them mentality, because we're really all on the same team. And so I'm just really proud of our teachers and our administration, how they work together. And a lot of you probably don't know this, but there's a group of them that come in early in the mornings several times, not weekly, but, and they work on issues, not just collective bargaining or contract issues, but everything that is a concern on either side. And they really have a partnership and work together to solve those problems. And I'm very proud of that structure. And I have a sister who's a high school English teacher. My daughter wants to be a teacher, so I just am really concerned about putting the supports in place that will make teachers successful.
So Chad, I'm gonna follow up just a second. So you guys might not know this, Brenda's right. We do have a negotiations team that's made up of WCEA members that comes in early, once, sometimes twice a month, to meet with our administration. And Brenda's right, currently, I didn't want to say this ahead of time because I felt like that was kind of cheating and giving them an answer that we wanted to hear, or that I wanted to hear. But when the legislation changed, nothing was taken out except for those items that were illegal. And we have a very good working relationship with Dr. Mead, and Mrs. Winters also serves on that negotiations committee. But we do, Brenda's right, we have a very collaborative relationship that we work well together. So we would love to see those permissive items stay. I think what we say around our Team Winterset table is it's working for us, so we don't want to change, we don't want to break something that's not already, that doesn't need to be broken, so.
Question number 4. Student behavior is an issue that is impacting many schools across our state and country. What are your thoughts about the next steps our district needs to take regarding this situation?
So I have 6 kids, and having 6 kids, you realize that it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution to any one issue. And I think that's, and I don't know what this looks like, and this is where I would rely on the teachers, the people that are dealing with these issues in the classroom, the teachers, the aides, that support staff, to some degree the administration, the people that are kind of the boots on the ground that are dealing with this. They're going to conferences. This is what they do. You have to rely on them to say, hey, there's a different strategy here that we can use. But again, I realize that it's not a one-size-fits-all. What works for one kid doesn't work for another. Like I said, I have 6 kids. It takes 6 different ways of discipline to get the same thing across to any one of them.
Can I say no? So I would agree. I think it comes down to every kid is different. And I decided when I first decided to run for school board that I was going to read Help for Billy, like all the teachers were asked to read. And that book was enlightening. And when you think about kids coming to school at different levels, and some kids not knowing where their next meal is coming from, some kids not knowing if they were going to get hurt at home. I cried multiple times when I read it. So learning about trauma with kids is extremely important, but not only do I think we need to listen to the teachers, I think we need to communicate better with the parents. I think there is a lack of communication with understanding maybe if you have a child that has a need, what that need is and how to better partner with you and with that child. I do like with the elementary, I don't know if the other schools are doing it, but at the elementary, the teachers are asked to get to know each one of their teachers. And they're held to that. They're asked the kid's name and what is something important to them and what is something that they know about them. So it's parents and teachers along with their kids.
I have a feeling that the answers to this question are just going to keep compounding and adding to what has been said previously. I think going to the meetings this summer and then listening to the changes that specifically the elementary school talked about, it was all relationships with the students. Spend some time with them, build a relationship, find out what they're interested in, and building that trust between the teacher and the student. I think that's that and even more communication between teachers, parents, teachers, students, parents, to understand what motivates the child. What's the best way to get them to change their behavior, or what might be causing it. So it does really boil down to the relationships, and I know the elementary school has made some great changes, and I guess it'd be interesting to see as we move forward how those turn out.
Well, one of the big questions that I had when I retired after 43 years was how things have changed. And I'll say it right, after being retired 10 years from teaching. Kids really are still pretty much the same. It's the parents that have changed. And the parents are back in sometimes this real poor behavior, and it's hard then to make them have good discipline at school when they don't have it at home. Now remember, the teachers only have them 8 hours a day or less, and the other 16, they're at home and they're disciplined and around the things that they're around for those other days. So it's a hard thing. Discipline, it's hard work. I'm just telling you, it is hard work. But you got to have, again, the teachers have to have the support of the administration to be able to do the things. There's some big thing out there that you can't, I hate to use the word grab, but you can't touch a student. Well, that's not correct. As long as you're not doing it in a way that you purposely want to injure them, then you can take a student out of the room. And I think I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, student behavior and interaction in the classroom is how I feel. It's a teammate, it's a classmate. You have to work as a three-part component with the teacher, the parent, the kid. They all work together, they communicate, and they're honest with each other. And there really is not one cookie-cutter solution for every kid in every instance. You still challenge that kid, and when they behave well, you praise that. And then when they misbehave, you got to instill to them that, hey, there is a consequence. Because when they become 18, those consequences become for real. And so we have to work at the earliest levels, and it comes from home, administration, and the teachers in the classroom to make the students hopefully realize that there is consequences.
When you look at some of the research behind what's causing these behaviors, there's some very serious and sad situations. And I think that it's just an example of the problems that we continue to encounter. When we get this solved, there'll be another problem. So I think the important thing is that as a board, you have to stand behind your teachers and think about the root of the problem and what do they need as support to help them get through it. So I heard the Help for Billy book mentioned, and I've read that, and I've taken all the online classes that we're putting you through for Trauma Informed, because I think it's really important that we understand what we're asking you to do, and hoping that that is going to equip you with the tools that you need to help handle these evolving situations.
When I first considered running for school board, when student conduct issues were becoming publicly acknowledged this summer, was a fear that we would have a one-size-fits-all discipline strategy, where if you do A, you get B. And we have kids that are all across a spectrum of abilities and disabilities. I think one thing we can do for all of them together is from the time they come in through preschool or kindergarten, all the way through high school, we need to have a district-wide code of conduct, a set of expectations that we hold our students to. Now, how we hold them to that standard is going to be very different from what we had of our preschoolers to our high schoolers. And it's even going to be different from kid to kid. Right? I think we need to take a long-term effort to make a cultural shift in our schools. Like I said, we only have 8 hours a day, but we need to set that standard, model that standard, teachers and administrators, and have some form of accountability. Not necessarily discipline, but just to let the students know when they misbehave, there is a consequence.
I started.
They can answer it again if you want.
I was one off, I apologize. These are the next 3 questions, and they came from the audience. And so here's question number 1 from their audience. What are your thoughts on class size? What should be done to balance the cost of personnel with the needs of our students?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. I would tell you, so my sophomore is one of the biggest classes in the school. That grade has a ton of kids, and I think at one point, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong on this, there was over 26, 28, 29 kids in a classroom sometimes. And you know, honestly, I feel for my son personally because that's hard to connect with a teacher and to learn, but I feel for the teacher. That is something very difficult for them to, not only asking our teachers to teach, but we're asking them to make sure that kids are safe, kids aren't being abused, kids are fed, kids are all, and so when we put even more kids, that's just more on their back. So class size is a big deal, but without seeing numbers and data and stuff, I don't necessarily know that I could solve that. The other thing is balancing personnel. My mind immediately goes to, we have a couple of administrators, we have a couple of principals that I think need help. We have a vice principal in the high school, but we don't in the junior high or in elementary. And I think those two need help. And so balancing their time and their needs with additional help would also help with the communication and some of the things we have going on.
I guess I can speak a little to class, as much as I can on class size, without seeing I know there are plenty of studies out there that take a look at the effect of learning and class size. You know, even when I was going to school here, you know, class sizes were in the low 20 range. So I guess I'd have to do a little research and see if, you know, additional 6, 7 students really impacts the ability to teach that class. You know, I think as big an issue with class size would be, you know, it would be one thing if you've got 26 kids that are all doing what they're supposed to, or 20 kids and 4 or 5 kids that are disruptive. So I think that could impact, you know, class size and learning as much as the size itself. So I'd have to take a look at that and take a look and see what the research says.
Well, class size depends on the funding that you have. I think the school board, on their behalf, would love to have just 20 or 21 kids in a class to help the teachers. But that means to hire an additional 10 or 15 teachers, and I'm guessing the funding's just not there. And if that's really a big deal and important, and it is, I'll tell you, an extra from up to 22 and then up, any extra kids it's really tough. So, you know, without seeing the budget, and from what my perspective of it is, I don't know what you would cut out to get more teachers. So.
Yeah, class size, kids are very adaptive and resilient, and they adapt to the situation. The person that, whether it's a low 20s, mid 20s, the teacher and the associate, there's one in there, they almost need more time during the day to decompress and reload and recharge their batteries, as those kids may come back from a recess, or if when they get to that age where they only get one recess, that's an extra burden on the teachers. They have to be, you know, all charged up because you don't have a limited amount of time with them away so they can prep and plan. So if you add another one in there, that would probably cost more and affect the budget, but the class size is challenging. I mean, I couldn't imagine, I commend them all the time when I see them, that it is a complete, you have to love it and want to do it, and a real love, passion.
I think we're fortunate to be in the size of school district that we're in, and that I know there are some smaller school districts that can have even smaller class sizes, but I feel like we have the happy medium between having very small class size and having the resources to offer a lot of opportunities to our students and to our teachers. And, you know, what they're saying is true. There's certain buckets of money, and there's one bucket of money that teacher salaries come on, and it's probably teacher salaries are at least 80% of that bucket of spending already, so there's not a lot of fluctuation there. But I think that you do have a board that's committed to teacher support and trying to put, if the class size is only one variable, so what other supports can we provide as far as assistance or coaching and strategies to help with that. So I think one of the keys though is just open communication. So if there's a struggle in your class or something that you feel like needs to be addressed, just to continue to bring that up to the administration so that it can be an open conversation.
think we all agree we'd like to have our class sizes be as small as possible, but even if we could hire another 10, 15 teachers, where are we gonna put them? You have to have a room for a teacher. You have to have a space for them. I think we have to come back to trusting our administrators' judgment and having our administrators work with our teachers who know our students in school better than anybody. So I'm sure my kids behave differently at school than they do at home. So if we have to start increasing class sizes beyond what the district or whatever the studies say is the optimal size, I'd like to see my administrators working with the teachers to find out, okay, what groups of students can we have in a larger class size? Which groups of students will thrive in a larger class size? And which ones need to be in that slightly smaller class size? What teachers can handle a larger class and which teachers can't handle a bigger class? We have to have open communication. We have to trust in our teachers and our administrators who work that chessboard to come out with the best possible solution.
Yes. Class size is definitely an issue. I agree, with the size of schools that we have. Even if we did hire more teachers, it would be very difficult to find the spots for them, if not impossible. So, and looking at a balanced approach, we have a lot of people here that are concerned, and I'm sure there's others that aren't able to attend tonight that are concerned with this issue. And a lot of those people may be resources for us. And to allow volunteers, given certain criteria, to come into the classroom and help, increase the aides and associates that are available to those classrooms and to those teachers that have those large students, because those aides and associates, whatever we want to call them, and those volunteers, they're not necessarily permanent as much as they may want to be, versus we want our teachers to be permanent. We want to retain our teachers, the good teachers that we have. So.
Thank you. Our next question. If a parent or staff member comes to you with a concern, how will you take steps to address that concern without violating the trust of the person who brought it to your attention?
Wow, that's really loaded. It would depend on the concern. I mean, if it's a concern of policy, then you would sit down and discuss it, discuss existing policy, maybe what changes could be made to help address that issue. You could bring it up to fellow board members, bring it up to Dr. Mead, and try to address that policy change. If it's, I guess there could be a million different concerns. If it's a personnel concern, then that, I would think that would, you would want to immediately address that with the superintendent and get that solved, same as you would in a regular business. Kind of go to HR if it's that kind of a scenario. If it's students, then you would need to set up. Try to communicate with the parents and maybe set up a meeting between the teacher and the parents.
Thanks. Remember what I said right at the beginning, that perception is real and facts are negotiable. And if a parent would call me, first of all, if it's about their teacher, the first thing I would ask them, have you addressed this concern with your teacher? And if they haven't, then I would, tell them to. And if they didn't get any satisfaction from that, they should address it with Dr. Mead. Dr. Mead, if you want to go down the chain of command, the way I look at it is Dr. Mead is in charge of the teachers. And the board's in charge of Dr. Mead. Okay, so if it's an issue with the superintendent, then I think a school board member should listen and maybe address that with her. If it's about a teacher, you should make sure that they follow that chain first and talk to the teacher, talk to the principal, and then talk to Dr. Mead. And then if they don't get any satisfaction from those three, then I would certainly be glad to listen. But I got to tell you, if something's bothering them as much to call a school board member, then their perception is they're getting ripped off, or they're getting cheated, or they're not being treated fair. And we've got to find the facts so that they understand.
first thing I would advise them to do is to, check your handbook, your student handbook, or your employee handbook. Read through that. A lot of times you can answer half your questions just by familiarizing and, reestablishing what has already been set forth in policy. Then if it has to come to a point where we need to sit down and meet and follow a proper protocol and to alleviate that situation, whether it be a student or with a faculty. There are those channels already set in play, and I'm sure we would follow those same channels to establish that and find a result to that.
I really enjoy being out in the community and hearing your feedback and your suggestions or your comments and concerns. And I think it's fine to bring those to the board. Mr. Olson was absolutely correct that we always need to encourage you to go back to if it's a teacher issue, go to your principal, or just to follow that chain of command, because as Julie mentioned earlier, one board member is one board member, and we don't have any power by ourselves as one board member. So we're a group that sets policy and governs, but it's not our job to manage the school, the minute details of the school. So we just need to make sure that we stay within those parameters. But we do have a session during every board meeting where we can bring up board concerns or things that we've heard from the community, and a lot of times that's where we bring things up, and we don't list any names. We just bring up, I heard from a parent and this was the topic. And that allows us to have a little discussion on that without naming any individuals.
I agree with everything that's been said so far. The one caveat to that might be if a parent is about to tell me or a member of the community about some form of violence, some sort of illegal act against a student or a staff member for that matter, I'd caution them before we go any further, if you tell me something like that has happened, I'm going to have a moral obligation to call Dr. Mead immediately. Other than that, I'd like to see students and parents working through the chain of command.
So as I look through the policy handbook, there is a flow chart in there, or a diagram of how this works, and teachers report up to the principals. The principals report to Dr. Mead. Dr. Mead reports to the board. I get that. But if a parent feels or a teacher feels strongly enough that they need to contact a board member, that an issue needs to be addressed, then that should be facilitated. Because if there's a big enough issue that they're not comfortable going to that next level, then that needs to be facilitated. Because if they're coming to you and it's a big enough concern that they're coming to you, it's not because they want to make you aware of it, it's because they want it dealt with, or they want to find a remedy to it. And I think by that trust would be that it's going to get handled, that you're legitimately not going to just sweep it under the rug, talk about it behind closed doors and say it's dealt with.
I think it's a two-sided thing. I think if a parent or teacher came to me, obviously there's a chain of command, and most of the time those are there for a reason, but it needs to be solutions-based. So in the business that I work in, when team members come to me about their agents, one of the things I always say is, have you spoken up? Because you can't complain until you speak up. Because if people don't know, they don't know. And then when you do speak up and people sweep it under the rug, you can at least say, hey, I spoke up, here's what I said, and if things don't change, then you gotta address them. But it's gotta be a solutions-based. If somebody comes to me, I'm going to listen, I'm a listener, and sometimes I think that people just need to vent and be heard and know that they're being heard. But I will ask you for a solution. So if you have a complaint about something that's going on, I will ask you what your solution is. Or if you don't know, can we do that together? And that's the same thing I would expect from the board is, here's the issue, what are the solutions? We can't just keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it, because we will talk ourselves in circles. But what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to hold each other accountable to that?
And our last question is a little bit of an easier one. What is your elevator pitch as to why someone should vote for you?
Well, if I'm elected, you're electing someone that has dealt with the public. I do every day in the job that I have now. I have negotiated problems from employees, and I help make policy that makes the city run better. Maybe not agree with everyone, but I've got, like I said at the beginning, I have a lot vested in this community. And I want the school to be the anchor or the foundation of our community. And if our school isn't any good, well, it's good, but if the school's having problems and the word gets around and the perception that we're not doing so well, then people aren't going to move to Winterset and come to the school. And eventually that's what's going to happen. So I just want to be a part of finding the facts of why people think that Winterset schools has a perception problem, and I want to help deal with that, with the facts.
Exercise that tonight.
When I first came to town, I chose this town just because of the size. But then you fall in love with the whole character, and then you fall in love with the school. Then you have kids that go through school, and you just continue to fall in love. And I fell in love with the school and had passion for the school, and just enjoy seeing everything that these kids and that they achieve and that they do, and how we solve issues, solve problems. We do work them out, and just really like that about the school. Really enjoy that, and I want to continue to keep pushing that ball forward and being positive and making the school become growing and continue to grow, because we have to compete for the growth that's coming down through West Des Moines. But I just very love the school.
I've just always had a passion for what's best for kids, and not just my own kids, but all kids. And that's the role that we need to play when we step onto the school board. It's not just supporting one child, but all children, and trying to see that they all have opportunities. I feel like one thing that I bring to the board with my finance and banking background is just the fiscal oversight for the school board. It was there were a lot of financial challenges when I joined the board, and we've really gotten that turned around. So I feel like my role in this next term is to mentor the others and teach them that oversight, get them comfortable with that, because it is a different type of finance, and it's important that we really have a good understanding so that we keep our school moving in the right direction.
And I've made no secret publicly that I grew up, and I still have a learning disability. So I know firsthand the importance of having great teachers, a smaller district that can help you. Teachers that you can build a relationship with from year to year to year. I also know the pain that can be inflicted by teachers that tell you you'll never be a success. You'll never go to college. I sit here as an answer that is not true. I went to college. I went to graduate school, not once, but twice. So I know what can be done. And I want to have a school district where we have that level of trust. And that level of trust is going to take time. And it's going to take communication. And it's not always going to be easy. And we're not always going to like the people we work with. But we have to trust them. We have to trust that at the end of the day, what's most important are our kids and the education they receive in the Winterset schools.
It's a good question. I'm still wondering why I'm sitting up here, to be completely honest. Cookies and water. Why should you vote for me? I have a vested interest in this school. I have a vested interest that this school provides a very diverse education for the students that are coming through. I feel that with the 6 kids that I have, I see that there's a very wide range of abilities with those kids. And I want to make sure that this district provides a wide range of opportunities for those students. Not just for those kids that are college bound, but also those kids that are much needed in the trades. And I know that the school district has done a good job in establishing programs in the trades, and I think that needs to continue, as well as supporting those kids that need to go to college as well, or should go to college.
So I just want to commend everybody that's up here. I mean, to sit up here, first of all, is really awesome, you guys. It's kind of nerve-wracking. So I commend everybody for being here because we all want to be part of a solution. So I want to be a part of a solution. I'm not a yes woman. I ask a lot of questions, and I think my husband's sitting in the back and he can corroborate that I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they hurt feelings, but I don't ask questions to hurt feelings. I ask questions to come with solutions. So I may not have the big credentials. I may not run a multi-billion-dollar company. I may not manage a multi-billion-dollar budget. But what I have is a big heart, and I don't settle for status quo. And I have a big passion. If you sit next to me at football games or basketball games, you know that about me. Even if you sit across the stands, across the field, you know that about me. So I have a lot of passion for what this community can do and is doing. Some of the things that we're already seeing are absolutely amazing. But I just know that I don't settle for okay. I don't settle for status quo. And I'm okay with hurting feelings. And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes my feelings get hurt. But we need to ask really big questions.
Since we've only got a minute to respond to this, the reason that you should vote for me, I will listen. If anyone wants to contact me, I've got, I'm silly enough to throw my cell phone number out on Facebook, personal email address. If you have an issue, and this is something that I believe in my heart with elected officials. If you have an issue and you want to contact me, you should be able to contact me. You should feel welcome to contact me. I will listen. We will investigate your concern, and we'll discuss it further. So really just simply, I will listen.
Can I take the rest of your time?
No.
I would like to personally thank each of you for being committed to the school as an employee here, and for all of you that come out to support. I mean, this school is the backbone of the community, so thank you.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank everyone. It's fabulous to come